Hello, I have here the LEGO Creator set called Viking Ship and the Midgard Serpent. I bought this for its retail price of $120 US and built it live over on Twitch. The set includes 4 minifigures, a brick-built ox, and of course everything else is brick-built as well for a creator set. It's also a 3-in-1 set, and I will be covering the other builds in separate videos, so just the main build for this one. Let me move these things out of the way and give you an idea of what we get here. I'm going to be showing you this separately, the Midgard Serpent. I'll just focus on the main boat. First impressions, for me, very positive. I'm very happy with the build. It didn't feel like it was too overdone along the way, but it did have some interesting techniques. It wasn't all just the most straightforward of traditional brick building stuff. So it felt like there was some challenge. It felt like there was some, well, I mean, at least that there was some challenge to design it in the first place. It was not difficult to put together, but it didn't feel too simple. So this is something that I think an advanced builder can appreciate, even though it's not too difficult. And I like the colors, I like the size, I like the fact that the ship itself is very open. Oftentimes brick-built creator boats in the past have not had good space inside of them. This one is large enough and built in such a way that you can just pose figures all around the deck, all the way down to the keel just about. And it's very efficient in that way. Right from the start, this is great to me. This build, I could not have asked to be any better because it's so small. It's so compact, and yet it just uses regular pieces. It's difficult. It's extraordinarily difficult to get a high level of detail with the shapes that you want with just regular building. And it actually holds itself together in spite of the fine little details in there, and in spite of the fact that this neck is kind of standing up by itself. It all holds itself together, and I'm not worried about anything on this ship falling apart. You'll find that to be a trend all throughout as I go through this. Coming down here, this is accurate. The way that it looks, the way that the planking is done here, and this is mirrored left to right to left, left to right, front to back as well. It's great. It's studs on the side construction. It's a whole module here that you just stick onto a center rail, center core of this, and it does its job. And in the end, you end up with something that doesn't quite look the same on the boat as it did when you were building it. It's better. It's just very, very appropriate. I'm going to stick to the hull at first, just the hull itself, so that you can just see some of the way that is done before getting distracted with interior details, of which there aren't many, but still it's a bit different there. I like how the shields are actually built up, and you can remove these. Each one is able to be pulled off, and you can hold it in the hand of a minifigure right there with that bit, but they are a little bit large for minifigs. That is the trade-off there. No two of these shields are the same. They have the same builds, but just different colors. And this is the Keat orange or flame yellowish orange color, not a regular yellow. Is that a little piece of dust on there? No, it's just a scratch or something, or no, it's a flow mark. This does use some larger pieces. Sorry about the focus there. It does use some larger pieces, but not too many of them. And I think that this was a good choice here to get this smoother shape rather than trying to fully brick and plate build that. But it does well. Focus is difficult with these colors. Do apologize for that. Down in the darker areas down here, but it does transition well back to the plate-wise and tile-wise construction, which again, like I said, at the rear is the same as up at the bow, but this is different because this is intended to be a tail rather than a head. Now, if you look closely, you'll see multiple different colors in there of yellow, of the flame yellowish orange, which is not good. And you also see some translucency where you can see through to the brown part on the other side a little bit. Definitely there are some ongoing quality issues with LEGO. I expect better from them in that sense. You'll also see some of that as I get into some of the interior details. The sand green had some variation. The browns, I've seen some of the brown pieces actually show. Yeah, you can see it a little bit here. Yeah, you can see the flow marks inside of there, and you see slightly different colors of brown within a single piece. I feel like the quality of LEGO parts has actually been going down in recent years Oh, that focus. I'm so sorry about that. That's terrible. On the other side, like I mentioned, the shields are done with just different colors, but the exact same builds. But it is unfortunate about the quality and consistency of quality of the Lego parts. But this design here, though, is great. Taking a peek inside, you got a couple of torches there and a couple of clips where minifig accessories can be attached inside, those little dark gray ones down there. And then this is a weapon that will actually work. It has the rubber band on there. You can load up one of these little 1x1 cylinders. It doesn't work great, but pull this back, let it go, and it just projects out a little bit, little ballista action. Do not like seeing the blue right there. The red as well, I think, just stands out a little bit too much. I think most of the rest of this is built with techniques and colors that make sense. So that just, it looks a little bit too traditional from a Lego perspective, a little bit more like a much older set. Look at how much room there is down here, though. All that is space. All that is studded space where you can place minifigures. All of that, just usable space. The mast is held in place well. I'll show you the rigging in just a moment. Again, trying to go through sections at a time. A little bit of hay down there, I think. Is that what? Or are those supposed to be sacks of like grain? And then you've got the covered area back here, which can hold 4 minifigures sitting down around a table. You even got the mug there and some fish up here hanging up to cook. So it's being smoked. You got the fire right there in the center. Yep. So you can see that as your smoker and or dryer space. And up top, I mentioned some different colors in the, you can really see it here in the sand green. That one especially, this one a bit, this one here also, just variation. It's not what you want to see. I guess the most fragile spots on this entire build are just these right here, these little horn-like details done with the corner tiles. Because if you hit one of those, it can be knocked off, but it's not that big of a deal. Yeah. I'm looking for what is the worst stuff that's going on here. The rigging is taut, surprisingly taut. It's very tight together, holds on. And this is the very first time that I personally have seen Lego do a flag on a boat with it facing by default, per the instructions, in the correct direction. They always have it facing back like this, as if the boat is propelled by a motor. So this is actually right, which is nice. A couple of birds just hanging out here at the edges, little brick builds. And this also has shrouds, which are also taut. Like they're very, very tight. Not too tight, not to the point of being uncomfortable, but it's nice to have some rigging there that's easy to put together and feels like it's working. I see a little bit of the Technic stuff and the colors in here that I wouldn't ideally like to see, but that's not too bad. It doesn't actually bug me. This does use brick-built sails. Not everybody likes brick-built sails, but these I think are actually pretty good, or this is pretty good. For what it is, I couldn't ask for it to be better. That's beautiful. The fact that you can see the colors, the stripes on both sides, it's interrupted a little bit in the center, but compared to the cloth ones where they only print on one side, and then the other side is just pale and one color for the most part, with a little hint if you have the light behind it of the design. This is more consistent. This is substantive. This feels like you actually build the thing. I like cloth sails a lot, but this is a brick built sail, or brick and tile built sail, I think, done right. And it's not too thick, and it's got a nice shape as viewed from the side. I'm pretty happy with that. As a matter of fact, I'm pretty happy with the whole thing. And again, relating it to the size of a single minifigure, I put one in here standing inside as well for the sake of scale. You can see this boat could potentially hold dozens and dozens of figures inside of it, with enough room to pose them in different ways. They're not limited to just certain, okay, minifigs go here for the photo shoot kind of spots. This is available and open and welcoming to play as well as display. The Midgard Serpent here is interesting. It's much more solid in its construction and its appearance than the one that it's inspired by from the old classic Lego Vikings ship set, the ship versus Midgard Serpent set. It's still very large. It can actually wrap itself around the boat a little bit, But interestingly, this one has essentially no posability from here all the way down to here. All of this is sturdy and isn't going to move at all. You have the ability to rotate the head though, which is useful if you wrap it around the boat. You can still be looking inside. You can also make the head go up and down. You've got a couple joints there that allow you to have it looking up in the air, or more importantly, just looking down, which is the most appropriate thing here, up to a point. Like that is, I think that's really the limit right there. The face is okay. You can open and close the mouth. The build of this probably felt better to me while doing the assembly than it does now. Just looking at the end result isn't as impressive. It doesn't feel as good to me personally. It feels a little bit old, but back here, there's a ton of articulation. So all of this can be flattened out. All of these are on these joints. So all that can be rotated around. I could have it coming off to the side. I could rotate it partially, start creating a little bit of a spiral effect here. There's a bunch of different stuff that you can do with this. This is super articulated back here. So about the best that you can do for having it just flat. I think it's about here. Yep, right there. Get this. And then the head is going to be sticking up. At least it holds itself up, so that's good. No matter what, it's not going to fall over. But it would have been nice to be able to flatten this out a little bit more, just in my opinion. I will point out that the use of these jumpers on the sides rather than tiles in these spaces does allow you to put minifigures on there. So you can imagine people, jumping off and then trying to hack at this thing. I think that's useful. Probably going to be useful for the alternate builds as well, but I'm glad that they did leave some studs on this. Then there are just these two additional builds. You get an ox there, which is a pretty good build for how few pieces it is, and the size of it and everything. I think that actually looks pretty good. I think that's very respectable, honestly. And then this has a little bit of loot in it, just a couple of gems. You got the top on there, and then those are inside. Here are a couple of Hollywood Vikings, which is odd because Lego did that historically fairly accurate Viking in the collectible minifigure series, and then they returned to this. I think this is more a nod to the original Lego Vikings theme than anything, using the Hollywood style helmets with the horns and all. But the prints are very crisp. They're not too heavily detailed. I personally would really like to see more consistency in graphic design style from designer to designer and theme to theme with the torsos. Just literally the graphic design style. The fact that this is very flat and cartoony is fine. I would just like it to be consistent. I personally prefer the styles that show a little bit more depth. I think that the variation in line width here is very good. But there's little to no shading, though. I would like to see some of that. I also wanted to show you the single face print for each of these and a better look at the full torso print in the rear. And then here, I'm not sure if this is a Hollywood headgear piece or not, but I do like it. I actually like the hair there better than anything that I'm seeing on the screen right now. That hair piece is really good. I personally kind of could have done without the crown bit, but it's not bad. It's not bad. Notice that this is the same torso piece that was used on the male figure. So, good on them for reusing some stuff, which they should all be pop and swap compatible. No weird, unnecessary waist lines for these. This works out perfectly fine, and good consistency with this torso print as well to the other two. I think the same designer did the work there, and yeah, it just looks like it's from the same theme and was intended to be compatible. So it's nice to see that sort of compatibility, but I would just like to see more consistency across multiple different themes and at different times. Finally, these are the leftover pieces. There are a few good little colors in there of small parts, and there was no sticker sheet for this set. Good set so far, and I've only built the main build. Like I said, I will cover the alternate builds in separate videos, but so far so good. $120 for this feels like the status quo, honestly, for this amount of Lego stuff. I'm not surprised. I would like to see it cheaper, and if you can get it on sale, great. Definitely great. After all, this is fairly empty on the inside. Just the one of these that I fired off. So, you know, you can't just look at the length and width of it and say, well, that's the volume of stuff. That's the total amount of stuff. But the build experience was good. It feels all appropriate. It feels right. It feels solid enough in its completed form. I'm happy with it. You know, I'm happy with the results of the amount of time that I spent assembling it. What I'm not entirely happy with, well, there are two things. One, this doesn't do it for me personally. I would have preferred to have just the ship and the figures, or maybe throw in another figure or something, but take out the price of this and done. Right? I'm sure that plenty of pieces of this are going to be used for some of the alternate build elements, but I think this would have been more successful on the market if the whole thing could have been pulled back, let's say to $100 even. Yeah, with another figure or two, I think that would have felt a lot better. You can leave the ox in there. It's kind of cool. But this, I understand, you know, the reference and everything, but this I don't think adds that much to the whole value proposition here. The other thing that bugs me a little bit is the fact that we've got these very historically inaccurate Vikings, possibly 3 of them, when they did a really, really nice, historically somewhat accurate Viking figure already, which they could have added to, like people who already collected some of those could have added them to their fleet if they had continued using that same kind of style and had more variation, like it would have fit together better. But then I do have to recognize the fact that this is a set that includes a giant Midgard sea serpent. It was supposed to hold the earth, the disc-shaped earth together. So yeah, historical accuracy, not the top priority here. I recognize that, but you know, just the more the merrier. Had to point that out. Overall though, good stuff. Looking forward to seeing what kind of good stuff we get out of the alternate builds as well. So thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed this, and I'll talk to you again soon.